the Euros? Should England be winning it, yes or no?
Yes.
Did you know Maguire is the highest scoring defender in English history?
What, in own goals?
Welcome back to the Lose to Win podcast with myself, Josh, and this week a special co-host. I'm in Jack's absence, unfortunately. Well, or fortunately, we should say. Welcome, Ben, back from last week. How are you doing, Ben?
Good evening, mate. I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy another week on the pod.
Yeah. In fact, actually, we might have you for next week as well, because I understand Jack's away. I don't remember what he said he was doing, but it was something
Exciting.
Yeah.
He's going to play golf, isn't he? He's going to play golf.
Yeah, golf.
Somewhere in Portugal, somewhere nice and warm.
Sounds lovely.
I'm sure
you're a fan of that thing. Yeah.
I'm quite jealous.
How have you been anyway?
I've been good. I've had a pretty traumatic couple of days. I won't go into it, but all good now. Thank you very much. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I've been steady, really. Just the same as every other week. I feel like I don't have the same, maybe, I don't know, upheaval, I guess is the word you could use in my life generally. Maybe that's boring, but it keeps me on the straight and narrow when it comes to the weight loss, at least to begin with. So,
okay. How are you feeling on that front? Are you feeling good this week?
Yeah, not too bad. I think it's been pretty... I've said this before. I've stagnated a lot this season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty much the same this week, I'd say. I've been getting much busier at work, and I know that's no excuse. And we can potentially come to a discussion on how we can avoid that. But
yeah,
it does put me on the back foot, I find, sometimes, because I've been so steady through it for a few seasons now. You know, it's the small things in my life outside of the Man v Fat that change my routine that cause me issues. It's not the motivation, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know,
I know exactly what you mean.
I actually don't think, fortunately, I struggle too much with the motivation to do it. It's so much as just the routine that throws me slightly.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, really, or maybe that is classed as motivation. But
well, I think it's routines. It's routines, isn't it, that are the key. And when you do break those routines, or things kind of come along and change things up a little bit, that's when you can fall off the wagon. That's when things can go slightly wrong. But at the same time, you know, people have been doing it. We've been having some conversations this week in our blues chat about motivation and the things that keep you going. And certainly for guys that have been doing it a lot longer, who may have lost quite a lot of weight and are finding it hard. The guys that have done it for a long time are finding it hard because it's so difficult to consistently, you know, sort of be on that wagon and on that path and being so careful all the time. And we've really come around to the fact that, you know, sometimes you just have to take some time out. Just don't worry about it for a few days or a week or whatever. Just stop. Just do something normal. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it too much, because it just kind of resets yourself. It resets your mind, gives you a bit more motivation to go again, rather than just that deep set sort of worry about it all the time.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think I do see this sometimes when we come to weigh-ins.
Mm-hmm.
I notice, because I'm usually there quite early and hanging around the room, at least for the first few. So you see people come in and there's always an obvious discussion about how the week went, etc., etc. But
yeah,
I think sometimes you find people really trying, like really extra hard to, over the 1 day or the 2 days in a week where they feel like they could have gained something back just to try and help them on the scales.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that's really good, but at the same time, I feel like they push themselves quite hard just for that Friday, and then does that make sense? So
yeah, absolutely.
They might have had a bad previous weekend, and then throughout the week's been more of a struggle, and then for the sake of saving an extra 0.3 or 0.4 kilos on the scales, they really hammer it for a Friday or Thursday.
Yeah, and I've definitely done that.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm not really sure if I find that particularly like a good thing, because then they'll get Friday evening after football and they'll do something, or they'll have another bad weekend, etc., and thinking, I can save it in the last 2 days.
It's definitely a mindset, that, because I think I am definitely guilty of it. After a Friday night, I normally come home and have a snack. I used to think, I'll go and have a right load of filthy food to get me through the weekend. And then actually after the game, I don't feel like it because I'm, pumped up, full of energy. And I actually just want to have a light snack. But I usually have a glass of wine or a beer or something on a Friday night. But then, as you're right, there's the temptation then to kind of fall off the wagon for the Saturday and Sunday and think, I'll have a few of this, I'll have a bit of that. And then you've got to work really, really hard Monday to Friday. Some people that works for, but I think generally the rule of thumb would be to try and maintain some form of consistency, which would be to crack straight back on or crack straight through from the Saturday. By all means, go and have a drink and do whatever you need to do over the weekend, but don't go bananas. Just try and keep that consistency because, as you say, you don't have to go nuts then in the week. You can keep this sort of slow and steady kind of pace, and you'll see gradual results.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into the roundup, shall we, for this week? So
let's do it.
Yeah, with the main league that was locked up last week by your Super Blues, there was
it? I don't remember.
Yeah. You'll have your moment. I'm sure it'll come up. With the main league locked up, there was a top of the table clash, which you obviously played a part in, or for the pitch league to be settled last week. Mm-hmm. And as so much already has this season, it went the way of the Super Blues. So with a 2-0 pitch win, which included probably one of the greatest goals I have seen, or the sweetest strikes I've seen at Man v Fat by Tom.
Wasn't it?
With the literal last kick of the game.
Unbelievable strike.
I actually don't think I've seen anything like. I think it was mainly because I think everyone knew we were seconds away from the finish.
Yeah.
And I kind of zoned out because I knew it was the end. I was on the sideline, obviously. And I just seen the ball was booted in the air, and I just think, it's like end of game, the whistle's going to go. Comes back down, and before I realised it, Tom's volleyed it left-footed 20 yards into the top corner.
It's an absolute peach. I saw it from because I was in goal the other end, so I was fair distance away from it, but I was right behind where he hit the ball. So I saw the flight of the ball from the moment it left his foot right into the top right corner. And bless Ryan. I mean, the best keeper in the world weren't going to save that. That was absolutely pure. It was absolutely golden, and the reaction it got from everybody there actually was fantastic. Everyone on the pitch, I think Billy ran the entire length of the pitch to go and give him a hug, but everyone who was watching, bless even some of the yellows, so you had to applaud that. It was something special. Amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, and it kind of summed up the season for your Blues, didn't it? It was emphatic.
I think so, and fair play to Tomo because he's done loads. He's done really well on the weight as well. Amazing. So, but I'll get round to that when I talk about the Blues in a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, next week starts a 4-week cup run for the rest of the league season. Anyway, and I'm desperate to see someone else win. Unfortunately, Ben. So starts this week against us, doesn't it? We'll see. Oh,
okay. So you boys, you're mighty Blacks. You're going to give us a run for our money tomorrow night?
We'll do our absolute best, of course.
Good.
At least I can say that. In the other games last week, anyway, the Whites overcame a 3-0 pitch defeat with a milestone and 5 hat-tricks in their team.
Very good.
Overpowering the Reds 14-12. And us Blacks found ourselves, hemorrhaging players. I would say, which resulted in a pitch forfeit of 5-0 and an overall loss of 11-5. It was just unfortunate circumstance that most of our team was away
that's
last
difficult.
week. So, difficult one there. And in case you were desperate to know, your Blues won 15-10 overall against the Yellows. Yeah, so another win, obviously. Not just pitch win,
on the wet as well.
Yeah, indeed.
So how does the final league standings look then?
So you got 18 points overall. Reds was second with 12. Then the white team were third with 10. The Yellows were fourth with 9. The Greens was fifth with 6 points. And us Blacks, unfortunately, bottom of the league with 5 points after our loss against the Greens last week. So that goes that. And then it's funny because it was a kind of a decent but if unspectacular week of weight loss from the league. 9.4 kilos in total across the league. Some impressive individual losses, which we'll come to in a second, but perhaps maybe this is unfair, but a little typical end of season motivation loss from everyone. But
I think we were talking about it just before we came on air, weren't we? And we were saying that it can get quite difficult towards the end of a season from a motivational point of view, because obviously we're all there obviously we're all there to lose weight and do the best we can, but at the same time, it does matter in the league. And when a team sort of definitively wins the league, kind of that last week or two your motivation can drop if you're not actually fighting for anything.
Are you saying it's your team's fault that people are losing motivation, Ben?
Listen, I'm just saying, through past experience and past seasons, having been in that position where we haven't been the winning team, I know it's not happened very often, but when I'm not in the winning team, you can. In the end, you go, we fight so hard to try and do our best in the league, and you just miss out, and you do just kind of drop a little bit of motivation, because at the end of the day, everyone wants to try and do their best they can within the league, So I think it's quite common to take a little dip at the end. But hopefully, with the cup run coming up, everyone can kind of get back on the wagon and go again.
Exactly. And there's always something to play for every week, isn't it? It's your own health.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's ultimately what you're there for.
Yeah.
Anyway, to the milestones, we have 2 this week. New to the league and 6 weeks in, George came away with a 1.5 kilo loss and hit his 5%.
Super blue.
Yeah, indeed. And then Jason, who continues to consistently chip away at his weight week to week, very, very consistent, has got into the elusive 15% club. So congrats to both of you guys.
Yeah, well done, mate.
Very good one. We have a bumper week of 13 hat-tricks. As always, I don't tend to reel off all the names, but congratulations, lads.
Yeah,
and finally, Last Man Standing hit the lucrative end game, and it dropped past the last 10 remaining players to 7.
Wow.
2 of which have not used a Grace Week, unbelievably.
Awesome.
They will all receive an additional team goal for every week that they remain in the Last Man Standing by losing weight. So they continue to lose weight, they'll get an extra goal for the team every week from now on. So, yeah. Team of the week, by the way, is topped by our newest member, so Jez from, I think he plays for the Yellows, with a 2.4 kilo loss at his first time of asking.
Excellent.
Milestone man George is the only remaining survivor from last week's team of the week. And behind Jez, we have as follows. So we have Kevin with 2.2 kilos. And that's brilliant work, Kevin, because his name has consistently came up the last 3 or 4 weeks on this update. And that's huge credit to his effort and determination. So we love that. And then we had Jimmy with 2.1 kilos. Christian with 1.6, Aidan with 1.6, George, as mentioned, with 1.5, and Barry with 1.3.
Brilliant.
Really a good going from everyone. It's funny because summer is supposedly over, and school is back despite the usual September burst of sun. As Steve says, we're running out of excuses, is what he says at this time of year.
Yeah.
I know that. So his message is always, let's finish the season strongly and turn in the remaining 4 weeks into good habits and ditching the bad ones.
Yeah, I concur fully.
Yeah. Go on then, Ben. How is it from you guys from a Blues perspective? Because obviously you've swept the league, really. I'm not sure how often that happens, if I'm really honest.
No, do you know what?
It seems extremely impressive.
It doesn't. The way we've finished it, to be fair, I mean, to win the sort of combined weight and goals league and the scales league with a week to spare is pretty special. But it was interesting because everyone kind of was, the build up for the last game was obviously the pitch, and we know we don't necessarily celebrate the pitch league within Man Fat because it's kind of secondary to the weight, which I totally get and I totally understand. However, the pitch league is quite key to a lot of people who are very keen footballers, so it was quite keenly contested, and it was really quite nice and poetic that it came down to us v the Yellows for the very last game. So it had quite a nice feel about it. The game had a nice feel about it, and it was tight, and both teams wanted to win. So I was really super proud that the boys managed to rally together and beat what is an exceptionally good Yellows team. It has to be said. I think it was a great game, and I think it was a real testament to both us and the Yellows of our seasons, on the weight loss, but also on the pitch. So it was a weird one because we were so happy that we kind of clinched the weight loss league and the combined league the week before. Of course, we were super happy, but then to get the pitch league as well was something special. So we're all really, really pleased, really happy. The guys have all gelled really, really well. And I can't really speak highly enough of them. I just wanted to take a minute just to say to all of them, absolutely outstanding season. The guys have been absolutely brilliant. The commitment, they've had. I mean, I know you guys have struggled a little bit on the blacks with people being able to turn up, and that does have a massive impact. But we've consistently had, I would say, 8, 9 players at least every week,
Yeah.
and that really is key because that many guys turning up and consistently losing weight. And I don't mean like masses of weight, but even if you've lost, a few 100 grams, it all counts. So to have that many players consistently turning up, consistently losing weight, you can't go wrong. That's how you win. That's how you win. The only way to win these leagues is on weight loss, because that's how you score the big goals. It's hitting the milestones, it's hitting the hat tricks, it's staying in last man standing. I mean, it's slightly difficult to talk about that because, some people can't avoid missing a week because they're away. A lot of people work. Over the summer, there's a lot of people on holiday. I guess we've just been one of the luckier teams where we haven't had huge absences. We've had people that have been around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I found this last year with the Yellows was that we consistently had 8 or 9 players every single week.
And you won the league, right? You won the weight loss league last year.
Yeah, we won the weight loss league last year. I mean, so I think that is proof in itself, isn't it, really? You get consistent turn up, and also it breeds motivation as well, I think, on some level, because people turn up every week and you kind of have a bit of discussion about how your week went. I mean, you do that in the chat anyway, but kind of out in person. And then you go out on the pitch and just kind of solidify it, and together, and then you kind of come back the next week and do the same because you're going to be there. So there's no like chopping and changing. And then that consistency breeds for the pitch as well as off the pitch, and it just all comes together. So
they've all been absolutely outstanding, and all of them. We've hit loads of milestones. The guys, honestly, I mean, I've got to give special testament to Nick, especially because he's new. Well, I know he was tailed off with you at the end of last season, but he'd only been there for a few weeks. This season, bless him, the guy, he's never played football before. He saw it advertised. He wanted to come and join in and give it a go, and he consistently turns up, consistently loses weight. He's very keen to learn, and he's just a testament to absolutely what Man v Fat is all about. I'd like to say that say that out to people who don't necessarily belong to Man v Fat. They're just tuning into the pod or whatever. But if you're thinking about joining up and you're worried about not being particularly good at football, don't know the game particularly well, doesn't matter. Come and join in, because the guys are so supportive, and as long as you're there and you've got commitment and you're committed to the weight loss and helping your team, you'll get everything out of it that you could possibly wish for. I also think that comes with just getting involved. Yeah, absolutely. I think that commitment and wanting to do well for yourself and the team comes when you get involved in the community and you just see how committed everyone else is and how accepting everyone is and how welcoming they are, and then it's easy. I found it that way anyway, the case. And tell us about your journey then. Tell us how sort of how you started and
well, it's funny. I mean, I'll do a bit of preamble, but I used to play football a lot when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
I've loved football. My dad's a massive football fan, Man United, unfortunately for some. Mm-hmm. And I just grew up on football, and I used to play a lot, 11 aside, up until I was about almost 20, 19 years of age. Not at any serious level. It doesn't mean you're any good, but just, for quite a while. And then I went to university and I did a computer animation degree. So I sat behind a computer for 18 hours a day, 7 days a week in a lab, not eating in regular parts and eating really poorly when I did, and just let go, kind of, there's a bit of independence there. And I didn't get involved in the football for some reason. I think I felt the level was beyond me. So, and I just let myself go really it's one of these things you steadily put on weight. And that was the kind of case. I kind of kept that same weight through when I started working afterwards. And then the 5-6 years after that, where I didn't get involved. My work was behind a computer still. So I kind of just stagnated, didn't really do anything. And then out of the blue, I had a few friends of mine who wanted to start doing like a 5-a-side league. And then we ended up just doing our own casual 6-7-a-side game once a week on a Wednesday. And I've mentioned his name several times on the pod before, but Jet was one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And he was involved in Man v Fat, and I didn't know what it was at the time, but he said, "Oh yeah, if you're looking to get," because I obviously got back into it really quickly, and I loved it, and I just forgot how much I missed playing football, even if I was really unfit. And he just took me aside and said, "Look, I do a football league on a Friday nights. If you're available, we've got a spot open on Tuesday for some. We do our Tuesday games at Littledown, so we've got a spot open. We need players. Come down and have a game with us. And I think our coach is going to be there, so he'll be able to talk to you about it." And yeah, so that was it, really. That was kind of a story run, because as soon as I got there and played with you guys, and then realised clearly straight away what a bunch of fantastic people you all are, and also that the level wasn't beyond me. Steve came up to me and said, "Come along Friday," and that was the first week of a couple of seasons ago. I think I've said this again before, where I didn't realise it was a weight loss league until I got there. But
I love that. But I love the fact that you engaged with it though. So when you found out it was a weight loss league, how did you feel about that?
To be honest, I didn't give it much thought. For me, actually, that was a good thing, and I knew it was a good thing. It was one of these things where, when it was mentioned to me, I thought, "Oh God, yeah, maybe not." And then, obviously, as it was explained to me, I realised that no, this is going to be really good for me, because this is one of the main reasons why I want to do it. Not just because I love playing football, but especially if this includes an aim to lose weight, and it's the whole point of the community. It's because I wasn't the smallest guy going in, so it was. I thought it was just immediately. I was like, yeah, this is even better than I thought it was going to be to begin with.
Brilliant. So where are you at with your sort of own personal weight loss journey? How is it working for you?
Yes, it's going well. I mean, it's been 2 stone in old money since I started. Excellent. 3 seasons ago. Well, close, not quite. I think I'm quite close to 2 stone loss now. So, that's been pretty good, pretty steady, you would say. I mean, it's 10 months or so, I think it's been.
Excellent, mate.
I don't know if my maths is any good on that one, but so that's not too bad. I mean, it's funny because I lost like 2 stone in a month and a half when I was in lockdown at one point, before all of this.
Right.
And so it's not, but that was an unhealthy way of doing it.
Exactly.
It was just a case of not eating very much. But this one, I haven't really changed lots, made small changes to my diet, but my routine has been much more stable since I've started anyway.
Right.
And obviously, the regular Tuesday, Thursday, Friday night games and some 11-a-side as well has just been incorporated into that routine.
Yeah.
And it's become so normal now. So that's where my exercise comes from. And it's just a case of just being really careful and watching what I eat. And the whole point of marking it down and tracking it every week, which I do religiously, has been a huge help. Even just the nature of tracking it.
Yeah.
I think I made the very poor joke about it before, that even if it marked down as McDonald's times 7 every week and I went in there, at least I know what I'm doing, and I know I'm doing what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah.
So I can look at it and just think, I had 1 too many cookies this week, for example.
Yeah.
So
it's really
just
important.
the activities helped me.
Yeah, and that's the accountability as well, isn't it? I mean, because if you do engage with it and you do actively write down everything you've eaten, you're kind of looking at it and going, wow, I've eaten quite a lot today. And then if you do calorie count, which I know quite a lot of the guys do, they all add up, and you'll be surprised at these kind of hidden calories, or secret calories as they're called, that you realise that if you don't write it down and you don't sort of religiously catalogue it, there's so much stuff that creeps in, and before you know it, you've got like 500 calories that have crept in, and that can be your sort of weight loss window. If you hadn't had those 500 extra calories and you'd mark them down and you realised that, and you've got to the end of the week, that's potentially a considerable weight loss. So it is key. Marking it down and having the accountability of what you're eating does make a huge difference. I don't think people quite get that to start with, but I know that it is definitely a big part of it. So highly recommended it to anyone out there. If you are on the journey, we strongly recommend you do catalogue it, because it does give you that extra motivation. Definitely. What other things have you done that have helped you to lose weight? Any other little tips?
That's the thing. I would say that, if I'm really honest, I haven't actually changed much. It's just I wouldn't say I've changed everything. I've done small things and I've tried different things. I'm not much of a breakfast eater. I almost never eat breakfast.
Yeah.
Actually, if I'm honest, it makes me feel quite sick to eat in the morning.
Yeah.
But that's probably just because I've done it for so long.
Yeah.
But there was a phase where I've like incorporated where, okay, I get up and I have an apple, a singular apple or something like that, just something to kickstart
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
And give that a go for a week or two and see if that's helped me. Okay, maybe it's worked out. So I've gone back to not eating breakfast, and I've realised, okay, maybe I'll incorporate that into a slightly later or an earlier lunch, or instead. So small things like that I've just been trialing, really, until I find something that's been working. And really, for me, it's just a case of my same routine almost, just incorporate a little bit more exercise and just being slightly more careful about what I eat.
Yeah. So just a sort of more generally balanced lifestyle, with diet, exercise, etc. That sounds like a very sensible approach.
I didn't want to make any drastic changes. That's the real thing.
No,
because I knew,
and you shouldn't really have to. Not really. It should be achievable by just making tweaks. I know I spoke about it a bit last week about just simple changes can make a big difference long term, and it is a kind of a long term thing. You have to look at it as a long term thing. Nothing is going to be instant. I think the instant sort of impact stuff, you might lose weight quite quickly for a short period of time, but ultimately when you stop doing that and you go back to your normal sort of lifestyle and routines, it just comes back again. So finding that kind of balance and finding that lifestyle change is kind of key. And of course, it's not the same for everybody. Everybody has different things that work for them. Some people calorie count, some people fast, some people go keto or whichever way you want to look at it. But some things work for some people, some things work for other people. Everybody's different, but it's about, as you say, sort of finding the thing that works for you and then incorporating that into your life. I think that's quite important.
As you say, I think you said this last week, it might be just a change of one thing you eat, just have slightly less of it.
Absolutely. It can be that simple. Or drinking more fluids is another real good one. Drinking, they recommend 2 litres a day, but of water, but any kind of fluid you can get into it. Obviously, if it's not whiskey or cider, probably not so much.
Full sugar Coca-Cola.
Not so much. But any kind of fluids, teas, coffees, water, squash, low calorie drinks, anything like that you can get in, because a lot of people don't like water and they find it difficult to drink. But I changed, and I have a pint of squash, which is low calorie, 1 calorie for a pint or whatever. I have that very first thing in the morning, and I'll have one last thing at night as well. And that's a litre in itself, and the other fluids I get throughout the day. But and I know some of the other guys have really found that the sort of intake of fluids, or water specifically, but any kind of fluids, has been really, really beneficial to them, and that's helped. But that's not for everybody, of course. If you say
absolutely, you have to keep caveating it. Whether it's a case of everyone individually finds what works for them, and
definitely. But it's a case of don't give up. If you do something that doesn't work for you, don't give up. Try something else, because you will find something that works for you. And it'd be interesting to get feedback from the rest of the guys, actually, as things that they may have done that have worked for them, that might be a little bit off the wall or a little bit different, but they thought, well, I'll give it a go, and it's worked. The perfect person to get on actually would be Rich, because the journey that he's had and the changes that he's seen are absolutely phenomenal, and he keeps losing. He keeps doing it. It's incredible. To hear his story and his journey would be brilliant. So, Rich, if you're listening, I think you need to come and be a guest.
Yeah. Don't worry, he's actually very near the top of our list. Don't worry, he's definitely on there.
I know he's a man of few words, but I'd love to hear his story. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, it'd be good. I think that's something we'd like to do with the podcast moving forward. Is get put some questions out there and get people to send in little clips, and we can insert it into the podcast, and people can give their stories.
Yeah, be fantastic.
Through us, so that'd be nice and easy. Or obviously, we're going to continue to get guests on, so there'll be many from the community on here in the coming weeks, I'm sure.
I'd love to hear from them. There's loads of them. So many success stories. Do you know anyone that turns up and loses weight, there is a success story. So I think it's just fantastic, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say we're going to cover some recent footballing headlines of some description, some of that's going to be international break, which we'll cover in England a little bit. I know we covered it a lot last week, but we'll cover them a little more now. We've actually seen them play a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing really is about, it kind of rolls into one really, is like a player behaviour thing. There's been a lot in the news recently about several players. I mean, it seems to be that they're either tied to Man United or used to be tied to Man United, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So we've had Jadon Sancho, who has had not problems with his professionalism or his conduct in the past, but I don't know if those are the right words. But at Man City, he's had it. At Dortmund, he had it. Obviously, now at Manchester United, now they've got quite a firm hand at the helm.
Mm-hmm.
He came out with a statement after. So Ten Hag said something in his press conference about Sancho not being in the squad because he wasn't trained. He didn't train well enough. And Sancho came out publicly on social media to refute that in a statement, which until yesterday he left up. Not a good sign, I guess. Really, what do you think?
Well, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because he's defending himself, I guess, but he's doing it through the social media platforms, which unfortunately they are a part and parcel of our current world we live in, and they have a massive impact. So on one hand, you could argue that he is entitled to protect his reputation, protect his brand, but at the same time, you're losing that professionalism that, the coach or the manager is the ultimate person who decides who steps on that pitch in that shirt for that team. So he's the one that says, if he believes that you're not doing what you should be doing and being paid a lot of money to do it, then they should take that on board and go, okay, I'm not meeting the standards of which I should be. I'll back my ideas up and do it. But as you say, you're getting this kind of petulant response that says, well, actually I am, and I'm just going to tell everybody because I don't like what you're saying, which is it a bad thing? Yes, I think it is. Yeah, I think we're losing a level of respect. And the thing that you need to remember is these guys, they're all massive role models for, future generations. Yeah. And these kids look up to these guys. They're their gods, I see kids running around the playground with their hair in top knots and undercuts and skin fades and they've got their boots and their socks done certain ways and they've got their names on the back of their shirts. These guys are huge gods to them. So anything they do is going to have an effect on those children, and if it's things like that, petulance off the pitch saying I'll do what I like anyway, then the kids will behave like that. It's just the way it goes. It kind of goes hand in hand. Yeah, I'm with you, mate. I think it's bad, and I think these guys need to take a look at the responsibility they have.
You kind of skipped ahead slightly.
Sorry.
No, but got to the point I was hoping to make, really, is that, and also because you've got Anthony, who was in the news recently. So, again, another Man United player who, I mean, there's yet to be determined when he plays for Man United again, if he does, because he's got some domestic abuse charges filed against him in Brazil.
Okay. Historical. This is when is this supposed to have happened?
So I have to admit I don't know the ins and outs of when it was supposed to have happened, but I think it's a former partner of his, or yes, I believed that to be the case, or someone he shared some intimate moments with in some setting. Mm-hmm. And as far as I can tell, it's him. It's this. There's a couple of women, I think, who have suggested that he's not acted in a correct and proper manner towards them in some form. He completely denies it and thinks it's a bit of a witch hunt, or seems to suggest it is.
Yeah.
Unlike the Greenwood situation, so far, at least from what I can tell, he personally is handling it much better, although there's not much in that. He's trying to slightly get out ahead of it, but also
he's kind of stepped back, hasn't he? He said he's instigated that.
Mutually agreed. Yeah.
That he fair play to him. I mean, we have to understand it's the whole innocent until proven guilty, isn't it? And it's really difficult because there's so many different analogies. There's no smoke without fire, blah blah blah. But no one knows. We don't know. We're only being told what the media wishes to hear. So we don't know if he's guilty or not. Okay, if there's an allegation, he's done the right thing. He's gone, okay, there's an allegation, I'll step back out of the limelight. till it's dealt with, and then once I prove my innocence, then all's well and good. And I think that has to be the way forward, because we don't know, do we? How can
I think there's an element of Manchester United learning their lessons slightly from the Greenwood saga, which has gone on for a long time. Obviously, Anthony learning from what's happened to Greenwood to an element, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was obviously on this podcast, I was very outspoken about Greenwood. I think the difference in this case is that there's no outwardly public kind of evidence, if that makes sense.
There's no video
to suggest
or anything
any,
like that. It's audio footage.
Suggest any guilt. So obviously I'm a little more. I mean, there could still be something like that just behind the scenes this time, but obviously until such time as that becomes, or if it ever becomes available, which I'm sure it won't.
No.
It's one of these things where if he ends up being proven to be another terrible human, then
bye-bye.
So be it. Goodbye, etc.
Yeah.
But until such time, in this one, I'm a little less outspoken on it, because it seems to be still quite fluid at this moment.
Yeah.
Another one we've had, ex-Man United player. God, this is a nightmare. Paul Pogba. He was in the news for. In fact, he's been suspended because of testing positive
Juventus,
for
isn't it?
Testosterone, which I assume he would have as a male anyway. But you know what I mean, excess testosterone. I mean, the argument could be made his career is slightly over now. He's had injury problems for the last few seasons, as he's already getting up there again now in age. So, and he was poor before that, so it's a talent gone to waste as such.
Yeah. He's appealing though, isn't he? He's doing some kind of counter thing where
I believe so. Process. I'm not surprised. I mean, we'll see what comes of that.
It's an odd one though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit surprising. I mean, it's hard to know that he wouldn't know.
Well, it's probably to do with that's to do with steroids, though, isn't it? The testosterone is the whole steroids thing. So he may again, don't know. He may be taking steroids to try and prolong his career. He might be doing it for other reasons. Who knows? But also might not be. He might have done something sort of innocuous and actually fallen down to a random drugs test. Who knows? I don't know what these guys do or don't do on a daily basis. So but they do know they get random drug tests, so they know what substances they're looking for. So you'd have to say if he was still serious in his career and serious with his role within his club, he would be aware of any substances that he may or may not have taken which would flag. So if it does come back as that's what's happened, then he's going to have to take that on the chin, isn't he?
Yeah, it's just such a shame. It's come back to your point about them being role models.
Yeah.
How many Paul Pogba shirts are there out there? How many Anthony shirts? How many Sancho shirts out there? I mean, I know there's the Man United connection. I don't like to big it up, obviously, but they're a huge commercial club and got a massive fan base. So
it's a real difficult one, isn't it? These young guys, it goes back to the old adage, doesn't it? It's these young guys that are sort of thrust into the limelight. They're given a huge amount of money, mind-boggling sums of money, with loads of time on their hands as well. And you have to think, well, does that get managed? Does that side of their sort of personal life get managed in order for them to not fall into these traps or not make these mistakes? Because
I always thought that. Do they get some sort of like? There's got to be surely people employed at these football clubs to.
You would hope so.
Guide young people who come into the world who suddenly come into wealth. Massive amounts of wealth, who are young and impressionable still, and
I think
how to handle their money, how to conduct themselves in the public forum, how to, mature almost to a degree.
Yeah.
There's surely something in play. Well, there should be. If there isn't, there is desperate need of something.
Well, something
like
happened.
That
something happened at England a while ago, didn't it? Who was it? There was a few of them. I think it was Greenwood involved again. Actually, Greenwood, Foden. Was it Greenwood and Foden and someone else? Yeah,
Greenwood and Foden. I think you're probably talking about.
They went out on a jolly and ended up going back to a hotel with a couple of girls. Yeah, but that was quashed quite quickly. I think they apologised. They were banned for a few games, and that was on an England point of view. It's really tough, and I do hope they get some sort of help and guidance when it comes to that. And if they don't, then maybe that's something that people should be looking into rather than just making money out of them.
Yeah, it's. I was just thinking, is media partly to blame for this? Not social media per se, but media in general.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, because now they're superstars, aren't they? I mean, footballers have always been held, in high regard, but uh, these guys they're world brands. The big clubs, they are worldwide brands. It's not just local teams now. These guys are recognised, and they used to find the shirts all over the world. The Premier League's biggest league in the world. These guys are followed by millions and millions and millions of people. So there is a responsibility, I think, around the media to, while they're responsible for thrusting these guys into the limelight, maybe they should be offering some sort of support to help them through it.
Yeah, I find it a kind of wonder what it sets a precedent for grassroots football as well. What they might do with their coaches or various other things off the pitch, even at like grassroots level.
Yeah,
they might just completely think, oh, authority's not for me, kind of thing. I can get away with it because I'm a talented footballer.
Yeah, and I'd hope that come down to grassroots coaching. You'd hope that the young, and there does seem to be a lot more respect kind of based stuff around. Certainly the stuff that I've witnessed. I've got a few friends who coach sort of grassroots young football teams, and they're very much focused on it's inclusive, everybody's joining in, everybody has respect, and they're also conscious of parents on the sidelines not getting involved and letting the kids just play. And a lot of ex-players are doing the same thing. Lineker's, spoken about it before, about just saying, just let the kids play. You don't have to shout at them from the sideline. You want them to enjoy the game, let them play. And that is kind of coming in, but maybe we go in circles. I don't know. Maybe it came in and everyone was a lot of respect and everyone was quite happy for a long time, and then it's kind of gone the other way. And now we're getting this bad behaviour again. The bad boys of football are coming back. It does seem to happen kind of generationally. We have periods where it kind of goes away, and then we have periods where it comes back again. So for me, I think social media is one of the worst things. And also these guys are so globally renowned, and they are brands now. Individually,
but they need social media, don't they, though, because of brands.
Yeah.
But then it becomes a vessel for people. And this is a separate subject, isn't it? Because we'll come on to this maybe in a bit, but it becomes a vessel for people to hurl abuse.
Yeah.
But then there's an element of like us versus them kind of thing. And I always wonder sometimes if that doesn't help footballers themselves when it comes to their own behaviour. But
polarisation is a product, isn't it, of social media. It completely divides. There is it's impossible to take a middle stance on anything these days. You're either one or the other, and that's the way it is. And that's what causes these issues, because people jump on one side or the other, and it causes massive arguments and massive rifts. And then people decide or feel that they need to air their opinion, and their opinion is valid. When 90% of the time it really isn't. But
I was just thinking, how do teams check their players' character when they actually buy them? Because I know this was rewinding slightly to what we were saying earlier, but surely there's something in place for that as well. How do they actually vet them? From a character perspective, or do they just go, well, I mean, Man United obviously clearly have not vetted some of their players very well.
Yeah, we were talking about
character
before,
or attitude.
I would hope that they do that. I mean, it's very similar to employers these days. I mean, you're probably technically not supposed to do it, but they certainly do stalk you. They might check your Facebook profile, your Insta profile, Snapchat, whatever. They can probe you to see what kind of a character you are, who you hang out with, what your interests are, etc., and then judge you on that. And there's no reason why that shouldn't be incorporated into footballers or sportsmen of any description. I know they sort of look at all of their stats around everything else, don't they? So sort of speed, in stamina, all touches.
They'll have a million different metrics.
A million different things. So all of the different things that they can measure. So you would hope that they would look at their sort of backgrounds, social backgrounds, influence on social media, etc., as to see if they would be a good fit within the club, or whether they would be a good brand to add to the club. If they don't do it, they most definitely should do it. And most importantly, I think the players should be aware of that if they aren't already.
The only thing I would say as devil's advocate of that is that football players now are lauded so young.
Yeah.
That my only problem with that is if you're a 15-year-old kid who's part of a football club in the academy and you make a mistake, you say something stupid online, various other things, is that supposed to count against your character?
Well, it'll come and haunt you, won't it? We've seen instances of people that have made tweets or Facebook statuses that have made some stupid comment, and it's come back and bitten them in the bum. But then they've had to come out and apologise for it. Will it affect them? I don't know. I think it's one of those things you can kind of explain, can't you? You can say, yeah, I was a bit silly for a while, or I made a few silly comments, but that isn't who I am now. I think as long as you take responsibility for it, I think if people stand up and say, yeah, I did say those things, but I was young, I was a bit foolish, but I've learned and I've come on a lot from that. I think people have respect for that. I think people have respect for ownership. But I think you're right. The young kids, it's madness. You see people out there scouting 6-7-year-olds on a Sunday afternoon. It's bonkers how quickly they're trying to get onto these players, and they go up to their parents and say, "Oh, have you thought about signing your kid up to an agency? Or have you thought about signing this, signing that?" And it's all about making money. All about making money. And I go back to I just want my kids, if they play, to just enjoy it. Just go in and play the game. Enjoy playing the game, and then see where it takes you.
I wonder sometimes if that's the difference between parents pushing for a hobby versus something they feel like they could do it professionally. As we know, very few players actually, kids make
numbers.
It professionally.
Yeah, so. Minute numbers. Yeah, it's bonkers, really.
Okay, on to England then. So we had some, obviously, international games this week. I mean, I have to admit, I didn't pay attention to almost anything outside of England, as is quite typical, I imagine, for international break. But what did you think in general of? I think the one that mattered was the Ukraine game.
Yep.
So, did you see both of them?
I had to watch the Ukraine match. I recorded it and watched it back, and I got to be honest, I fell asleep in the second half. Partly to do with having a couple of beers while I was out, but I thought it was decidedly average. I didn't think we were appalling, but I thought it was. I thought Ukraine were really up for it. First and foremost, I don't think we should take anything away from Ukraine. I think they were really up for it. They were on home soil. Obviously, there's a lot going on there, and they were very passionate. And they basically, it was like a win for them. Those guys. I don't mean them any disrespect, but we beat them 3-0 in the Euros last time around, and I think we've already beaten them in this group already. But it was their night, and I don't think you can take anything away from that. From an England point of view, though, the team selection.
Well, I mean, we had a debate of this over the week, didn't we? Or I say a debate. I came out with some sort of rage message when the team selection came out before. Well, on the Saturday, I don't know why I shouldn't be like that, really, because part of me is sitting there thinking, I've got to trust Southgate,
Yeah.
Let's be honest, we've never been worse than a quarterfinal since he's come in, have we? In any major tournament.
No.
Which is already a massive improvement, considering we haven't even qualified as recently as, what was it, 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago or something. So it's obviously a massive improvement. Now, the counter argument to that is that they've got such depth of quality, huge quality in the team, that it should be a given.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves a little bit on what to expect.
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. And I think what the problem is, you're right. The expectation is there because we've reached the final of the Euro, or the semis of the World Cup. The semis of the World Cup, the final of the Euros, and then the quarters of the next World Cup. There is a huge amount of expectation on them now. I think we've gone past we're kind of doing better than we thought stage. We've got to the stage now we are expected to make semi-final finals of every major tournament that comes up. So he's now kind of taken England back to that time in the sort of late 90s, early noughties, where there was a huge amount of expectation on the team. Gareth Southgate is now at that level.
Yeah, I guess that comes in the scrutinisation, as we were saying, about team selection.
Yeah.
So obviously the whole thing about Maguire starting, I'm not so worried about that one because, we don't have many defenders to choose from.
No.
But I do think in the Scotland game, it did show the fact that he brought Maguire on instead of, say, playing Colwill or Tomori.
Yeah.
Has annoyed me slightly because I just think to myself, Gahey was obviously planned to get 1.5 games, that was kind of partly the plan, clearly.
Yeah.
But why choose Maguire? he's already played a full game against Ukraine. Play someone. It's a friendly. Play someone you haven't played, especially when we're like, well, I don't know if we were 2-0 up at the time. So I'm just like, well,
it was an odd one, wasn't it? I mean, I got to be careful because I've defended Gareth Southgate and I defend Harry Maguire, but that was an odd call. I know he wants to give him game time. I know he's trying to keep his confidence up because obviously he has been a big part of the team and he probably will continue to be a big part of the team. But as soon as he came on and the Scots were jeering him, every pass he made, they were cheering and kind of. I mean, I was like, oh, poor lad, fair play. But then the England fans got on his back, and then to score an own goal, I just thought, oh, dude, this could literally be the end of your career. And in his defence, he didn't really do much wrong. In all fairness, it was kind of unlucky, but weird.
Lazy leg, but very unlucky. It's one of these things where, and this is what I talk about. I'm actually quite a staunch, at least in comparison to most of the people I speak to. I'm actually quite a staunch supporter of Southgate and his decisions, and generally things like Maguire, because I am very much of the opinion that there's no point bitching and moaning basically about it all the time. The only thing you're going to do, I get it, people have their opinion, and it's obviously fair to have one, but I feel like it goes too far one way. It's like, as you say, we reach a level as a team and then everyone expects something more. And there's always something more and always more and always more and always more. It almost makes me feel like if England were to win the Euros, having played Maguire at centre-half the entire time, which I expect them to be doing, we'll come to the next qualifying game for the World Cup and he's still not playing regularly and he'll get absolutely lambasted for picking Harry Maguire again, like Southgate would, and Harry Maguire gets stick and various other things. And I think to myself, what more do you want? They've literally just won a Euros. It's just like, so I always feel like it's always the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Yeah, you're right.
I do have to admit, I was questioning whether, and I think a lot of people question that Gareth Southgate's too conservative in his approach to, especially in his team selection. But it has got us decently far in tournaments recently. So is that tournament football, or is he just not? Yeah, is he not seeing things where 95% of the population, or are 95% of the population wrong? He's just, he knows better.
The reality is, he's the guy that is in charge, and he has a way of playing football, and it has been successful to a degree to this point. I mean, let's face it, he is aside from Alf Ramsey, he is the most successful England manager. You can't get away from that. That might be to do with the huge raft of very talented players that we have coming through, but you have to give him credit for the way that he set the team up. He has a core. We talked about it last week. He has a core certain amount of players that he sets his team up around, and they have been the same for the entire time. Now, of course, if we start to fail and do badly, then that will come under even more scrutiny, and then he'll be under pressure to bring in some of the other players. But for me, you have to give the guy this next tournament. I think this will be his defining tournament. I think this has kind of all led to this. He doesn't seem to have kind of a plan B. He doesn't seem to have a change of gear, I suppose. He was a defensive player. He was a very good defensive player, but that's kind of, I guess, his mindset is to defend first and then use the attacking players later. And the sad thing around that is we have got a huge, like I said, a raft of hugely talented attacking midfield and forward players that you could probably make two very decent attacking sides out of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, is there an element therefore of people thinking because we've got so many great attacking players, we have to get them all in the team where possible?
You can't, though. You can't, can you?
Exactly, and that's what I'm trying to say is that I do think England are a good enough team, even against the best, to play one holding midfielder, one single pivot.
Yeah, I agree.
So probably Declan Rice in this case.
Yes.
And then have 2 8s or an 8 and a 10. And that means, and Bellingham's going to be in the team. So you still means you can play, in my mind at least, one of Foden or Maddison and Bellingham do the 8, etc. I think that's where a lot of people kind of feel like we're good enough to do that.
Yeah.
And also, it would slightly fall into the same category that a lot of these players play for their clubs.
Yeah.
So, because, I mean, think about it, Rice plays for Arsenal and there's a single pivot there now. You know,
Yeah.
it's like things like this. So I can see where people definitely, and I'm of that ilk as well, to try and get them in. But maybe for tournament football, that's not the right thing. I think the argument there is that means if he needs to play a slightly more defensive style, which he wants to do, and have two pivots or someone who can do that, he has no choice but to play Henderson and Phillips, two of the people who have obviously become under question.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
See, I questioned Henderson. I didn't think he should really have been there. I didn't think there was any benefit to him being there at all. Phillips is a difficult one. Again, we talked about him last week. I rate him highly as a player. I think he's very good. The fact he's not getting time at his club is a difficult one because he's got players ahead of him, you know, like Rodrigo and Kovacic.
He's at Man City, I mean.
He's at Man City. It's difficult.
Yeah.
But I thought he was excellent. I couldn't fault the way that he played. I thought he had a great game. And he's a young player as well. So I don't know. Everyone has
I would just like Southgate to give it a go. Just one game, even if it's a friendly, just say, okay, I'm going to play, you know, Rashford, Kane, Saka, Foden, Bellingham, Rice, or something like that.
Yeah. Get them all out there. Give them a chance.
Do it. You can still play Kyle Walker for that defensive run. You can still play, you know, if Luke Shaw is fit Luke Shaw can be there. He can still play Maguire if he absolutely feels like he has to, and John Stones, hopefully, if he was fit. But I just try, just give it a go. Let them, because most of the time and it's be the same when we come to the Euros. I think throughout the entirety of the group stage, and assuming we get this far towards the quarter and potentially semi-finals, you're going to be playing teams that I think England can dominate, at least in possession. So surely you need some more creative players on the field.
Who knows, mate? I'm hopeful that we'll have a good tournament. I think it will be his defining tournament. I hope it will be.
I was about to ask you, should England win the Euros? Should England be winning it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah, same. I agree. It should be.
I don't think there's anybody else in Europe at the moment who has a better squad of players than England does, or plays better football than England does. I think we were incredibly unlucky against France at the World Cup. I don't think we should have lost that game.
Yeah, nor do I.
And I think if that had been the case, I genuinely think they would have gone on and made the final and potentially won it, because I think we had a better group of players.
I'd have fancied our chances against Argentina. More than the French.
Yeah, all day long.
Yeah.
And I think as long as we don't come across any like banana skins, or I think we should be looking to it, you know, final. We have to. This is what he's planned for. This is what he's kind of set his stall out for. And I'd love to see us lift that trophy. I would absolutely love it. And then what happens after that? Of course, we'd be expected to win the World Cup.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They want to get on their backs when we don't win it. But do you know what I mean? Just for that 24 hours of pure joy of England winning a major trophy in my lifetime would be, that would be the ultimate for me.
Right. One last thing I was going to say before we move on. Did you know Maguire is the highest scoring defender in English history?
What, in own goals?
No. But in actual, well, even if you take his own goals as minus goals, he's still the highest scoring defender.
Do you know what, mate? That doesn't surprise me. There was a time early in his England career, where he was banging them in. He was literally there all of the time. Balls were coming in and he was nodding them in all of the time. So I'm not surprised.
I remember that one against Ukraine is it in the Euros?
When we beat him 3-0.
World Cup or whatever. Yeah, something like that. And you can literally hear it come off his head.
Slabhead, don't they? Is that what they call him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it literally, the sound it made when it came off his forehead before it hit the back of the neck was like piercingly loud. Like, it's quite funny.
I mean, I don't think you can take anything away. I know he gets a lot of stick, but he has been kind of the stalwart for this whole England setup for a long time now. And of course, we always like to have a scapegoat. There's always someone that's under.
He has his deficiencies, but
he does. He does.
But let's be honest. you get more set pieces and they count more, things like this in and possession, and it's a slightly slower game when you're playing international football.
Yeah.
All things that help Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
And so
and
I
when
can see
he's
why.
partnered with Stones, they are a really good partnership. I don't think you
Yeah.
can take that away from the pair of them. They work very well together. So when he's back, maybe, who knows?
Yeah, right. Anyway, on to some fantasy football now, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I know you're
come
a
on.
big fan of
Yeah,
fantasy
yeah.
football.
Let's do this.
So I was just going to run through a few things that I got some questions from to cover
Mhm.
that I previously had. Along with that, though, before we get into it, I would like to just cover a few things for the upcoming weeks. So there's a few fixture swings coming up, or at least a few teams that are going to land in some good fixtures after having some bad ones. And quite typical of the overall community, people are selling players from all the teams who are about to have good fixtures and buying players from all the teams who are about to have bad fixtures.
Of course, yeah.
Or have just had them, essentially. It's a strange thing, which makes me laugh sometimes when I see it. So it's funny because I've just arranged. So the best 4 or 5 teams that have got upcoming fixtures, we've got Aston Villa, who've got some good games. They're probably top of what is known as kind of the fixture ticker.
Yeah.
And then you've got Newcastle, who have just had some very bad fixtures.
Yeah.
Liverpool, who are about to have some very good ones. And then if you include Burnley and Luton, because they've got
Double
2 games 1 week, a game against each other 1 week additional. Then some of the worst fixtures, Brighton, they've got some bad ones coming up, and they've been very good. Man City, but with the caveat that Man City are Man City, and so it doesn't really matter. They're kind of fixture proof. And then Brentford and West Ham have also got some quite poor fixtures coming up as well, overall. Funnily enough, Manchester United, who are somewhere in the middle, used to be, they've got some very good ones coming up as well. So that kind of brings me onto the list of players that I have gathered that have either been bought in by a lot of players during the international break or sold by a lot of players. And I wanted to run through and get your opinion on them because...
Go on.
So I'm going to start where I love to start, with the Manchester United players.
Of course.
So, yeah, obviously. Now, they've got some very good fixtures coming up, but the Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes are some of the most sold players in the FPL game over the last 2 weeks. Yes. It doesn't surprise me because they're
not had huge returns, have they?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. People are they knee-jerk quite a bit. So they haven't had any huge returns, but they're about to play some relatively decent fixtures.
So they got Brighton. They've got Brighton, and they've got
Brighton, Burnley, Palace, Brentford, Sheffield United.
Okay, so those next 5 are pretty good.
Yeah. Now Brighton at home as well. Brentford at home are the 2, which are probably the 2 worst ones in that list. So while it's Burnley away, Sheffield United away, it's there's a pretty good run. They do then play Man City at home, but then they have Fulham, Luton, Everton. So
that's not a bad run, is it?
Exactly. So my advice to those people who are trying to sell, and I've noticed also that Rashford and Fernandes have gone down in price by 0.1 million. Yes. So I've lost 0.2 from my team for that.
This could be a wildcard situation.
Well, I'm not there yet. I've got 2 Man United players, and this isn't bias, but I am definitely keeping them for this run.
Yeah, fair shot.
So and if I had to choose between one of them, not both, I'd keep Fernandes over Rashford.
Why?
Because he is the creative heart of Manchester United.
Penalty taker? Penalty taker?
Yes, he is the penalty taker, but he has also put up the most expected goal threat.
Is he?
He is one of the most. I think he's the top 2 or 3 in the league this season of expected goal threats. So that combines expected goals and expected assists. He is always at the heart of almost everything Manchester United do. And he has, to a point so far this season, been quite unlucky with how little he's returned.
Fair play. So I'm guessing the players that would be up against, or players who've transferred him out, would be in line for people like Son, Maddison.
Yeah. And that brings us on to Spurs players.
Sorry, I'm jumping in.
No. You go ahead. Absolutely. Because you're completely right. Spurs players been brought in by quite a lot of people. Son is the most transferred player in
Yeah,
in the
not
last 2
surprised.
weeks.
Yeah.
In fact, he's been brought in by over 500,000 players.
Wow.
So, and Madison, almost 500,000 players. I'm not surprised. Son got a hat-trick. I mean, and if he continues to play number 9, I can understand why you would want him in the team. Madison's been brilliant, and again, he's like the creative heart of Spurs at the moment. But I would just caveat with a caution, despite the fact they are playing Sheffield United this weekend, they do then have to play, I think it's, as far as I'm aware, it's Liverpool and Arsenal, or Arsenal and Liverpool in that order. So I would just say that while I can understand buying them, and in particular, if I had the choice between the two, Madison is the one I would get.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm personally probably going to wait until game week 8 to get them, because then they have Luton, Fulham, Palace, Chelsea, Wolves, Villa.
Okay.
So
are you looking at using your wild card week 8? Have you used?
Yeah, somewhere around then, because I will think, and this brings us on to the Liverpool. I think Liverpool's fixtures change in week 8 or 9 to become really good. So again, I would look at getting rid of. And Chelsea's fixtures get bad, and I can't remember who else it is. I'm thinking of. I've got in my team.
What, around week 8?
Yeah, around week 8. So I haven't really done super loads of research into it just yet, but that's where I'm thinking. So I don't mind the idea of buying Son or Madison in particular, but just be careful for the next 3. And then after that, they're brilliant. If you're going to keep them for 6, 7, 8 weeks, they're great. Trippier, Isak, Newcastle players, they've been sold a lot. Again, I'm not really sure why, because they haven't had a great run of fixtures. They've played Man City, Liverpool, Brighton.
Yeah.
They're not the worst teams in the league, are they? Really? So
no.
Now they've got Sheffield United. They haven't got Brentford. Sorry, they've got Brentford this week. So they've played City, Liverpool, Brighton. They've got Brentford. Then they've got Sheffield United, Burnley, West Ham, Palace, Wolves. And so this is the time I would recommend buying them, not selling them. If you were going to buy Newcastle players.
Yep.
Trippier is probably the best defender, but the most expensive. Isak's probably the best forward. It's just simple as that one.
Over Wilson? Do you think he's going to get the run out over Wilson?
Yeah, I think he's their number 1. I do expect him to come off 60, 70 minutes in, which has been the case.
Wilson's good off the bench as well, and he scores a lot of goals off the bench.
But I would rather take someone who has the minutes. So Isak's played 67, 65, 71 and 73 minutes.
Yeah, fair play.
So, it's I would say so far that they're good people to get in, because I don't expect that to continue. People say they've had a bad start to the season, but they had those exact same fixtures to start last season, and they got 4 points from them. Mm-hmm. And now this season they've got 3 points. So it's not a disaster.
No, not at all.
Look where they finished. So they're a good team still. Ferguson from Brighton's been brought in by a lot of people, understandably. He got a hat-trick. But he has... The issue with that really for me is the fact that I don't think he'll play enough minutes, even after a hat-trick.
No, I don't.
And they've got some bad fixtures. And then Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea's been sold a lot. I think people just saw his wild miss against Forest and thought, I can't keep him. When in reality, they've got Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham and Burnley in the next 4.
Yeah.
So some good fixtures. And they put up over 2 expected goals in that fixture. So I'm expecting him to score very soon. Hopefully not this weekend so much. Against Bournemouth.
So you're keeping Sterling?
Yes, keeping Sterling again. Very good fixtures. Like, as I said, Bournemouth, Villa, Fulham, Burnley. Like, I'm sorry, but the fixtures are king. Fixtures are really important in fantasy
I had
football.
To stop myself from knee-jerking a wild card bit off the back of that Tottenham result, because I had a really good points. So I'd got 91 points last week, which raced me up quite a lot of my leagues. I was tempted to play my wild card and bring in a load of informed players, but based on exactly what you've just said, I had a quick look and was like, I can't. There's no point in doing any of that, because the chances are I'll transfer them out. They'll have bad weeks, and the players I've got rid of will actually have good weeks. So I've resisted doing that.
I think that's the thing with knee jerking. So that's important. So we'll talk about chip usage, because triple captain is probably the one that people can just kind of slightly wing it. I suggest doing it when players have at least 2 games, so double game weeks towards the back end of the season. but there's no guarantee of knowing when they're going to be and who they're playing. So, I mean, if you had Haaland who was playing Luton at home, it's not a bad place to triple captain him.
Luton home, then
for
Burnley
example.
at home.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine that in a double game week, but you can't always land like that. So it'll end up being like Haaland plays Man United away and like Wolves at home in a double game week, and it might be the best time to use it. That's just how it is. Wild cards are probably the most powerful. The thing, I think people seem to assume that if you need to make 2 or 3 transfers, you should use a wild card, or you just look at it. I always say to people, try and save it as much as possible, because half the time you don't need to use it. I think also you can probably take up to like a -12, like 3 transfers before it makes sense to use a wild card.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would even go as far as saying I would prefer to take -12 points in an area where I feel like it's necessary to stave off using the wild card for another 4 or 5 weeks than I would actually use the wild card, because although you get 2 a season, it is only 2 a season, so you do have to try and think of some sort of strategy in some way for your transfers.
Well, there's a question for you.
All sorts of things happen.
So first, you get 1 wild card from the top of the season. Do you have to use that before Christmas because you get a second one in the January window? So if you don't use it, you lose it. Is that right?
Boxing Day.
Right. Okay.
So Christmas Day is the last day you can use your wild card for 1, and then Boxing Day, the first you can use your wild card to. So
good to know.
Yeah. Also, someone asked me about using bench boost and things like that. Bench boost I like to use in combination with wildcard. Generally, after a wildcard, it's a good time to use a bench boost, because that is when you can build your bench around it for better use. And then free hit, the best time to try and use that is in a double game week where lots of teams have double games, like 2 games, or in a blank game week where lots of your players have no games.
Yeah.
Those are the best times to use it, and that is always going to be sometime in like March. You know, something around there. Someone asked me about taking hits as well. So a general rule of thumb I have on that is think of it individually, bearing in mind if you're going to take a hit, like a -4 transfer this is, analyze it on its own merit. So there's no like general rule. It's okay to take them, but you have to understand that it's best to avoid them where possible, and you have to be quite confident that they're going to repay those 4 points in the time that you're going to keep them.
Yeah.
So if it's only 1 week, you need to be. I mean, I don't advocate that at all, because you need to be extremely confident that your player that you're bringing in is going to get 4 more points than the player you just took out in that 1 week.
Yeah.
And that's very rarely the case. So it's usually looking ahead. So, for example, if I wanted to take, again, Rashford out, and this week I didn't have any transfers, and I wanted to change into Maddison, I've got to be quite confident and I said I want to do that for 3 weeks, I've got to be quite confident that Maddison is going to score 4 more points than Rashford is in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, to make it even out,
make it
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say. And then the other one, someone asked me about price changes. So price changes are based on transfers, not on player performance. So the number of transfers that come in, the price goes up. If you've got a lot, so like Son this week, he's got a lot of transfers in, he's gone up in price. If you've got a lot of transfers out, like Rashford and Fernandes have, they've gone down in price. So that's how it works. There is a magic formula, but literally no one knows what it does. No one knows what it is. I use a website called fplstatistics.co.uk, and that's where I can see how close people are to changing up and down.
Is that real time then? Does that track real time as to who's transferring?
Yeah, it's roughly real time, yeah. And then you can see whether they go up that night or not, basically. So
they do say that they show the transfers, don't they? And they say how many thousands of people are transferring them, so that kind of indicates that they're most likely to have a points change.
Yeah, exactly. It's impossible to predict, but I always say to myself and to other people, try not to make transfers based on price. It's better to have information than it is to try and desperately go and attempt to try and gain the value in your team by making an early transfer. because you never know what can happen. We've just had an international break. I think so Evan Ferguson's injured, for example, I think. So,
right.
And a lot of people transferred him in. So, there's that.
Yeah. That's the drunken knee-jerk reaction on a Saturday night watching Match of the Day.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's a brilliant player, obviously. But
yeah, totally. But you're right about
for fantasy football, it's a different game.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, thanks, mate. Excellent insight. I shall take everything you said on board. And I shall
thank you.
And
I'm not a pro by any means, by the way. I'm just one of many people who pays close attention. That doesn't make me good. It just
no, it's good insight, mate. I mean, I've been playing it for a long, long time, and I've never reached the heights that you have. I'm having a good season so far, though. I'm quite pleased with where I am at the moment.
Yeah,
behind Sid,
but we've got some good players in the community, so good competition.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Excellent. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, no worries. I think we'll leave it there then this week, if that's okay.
Yeah, mate. Well done.
We've gone through quite a lot.
But lovely talking to you, dear.
Yes, and you. And thank you very much for filling in.
It's a pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to seeing you next week.